I'm just gonna give it to you straight, fellas. This next set of videos are all projects that I had more or less nearly completed back in late January or early February, and I just forgot to put them out. I thought I had completed and uploaded them, but I was wrong. Yes, I know, but to be fair, we were all a bit preoccupied around that time. If you've seen the community post, you know what's up. This isn't a reason, obviously. I still shouldn't have made such a stupid mistake as making a whole ass video and then forgetting to upload it. But here we are. No use crying over spilt milk. So enjoy some fashionably late content, and while these come out, I'll use the time to work on the actual next projects. Enjoy.
This attack is eerily realistic.
Everything is sexist. Everything is racist, and you have to point it all out.
If there's one thing about video game culture that I find really interesting, it's demakes. You know what a demake is, right? Should be obvious. If a remake is taking an older game and making it again for newer hardware, a demake is taking a newer game and making it again, but this time for older hardware. The majority of demakes are made by fans, paying tribute to their favorite games. Like, for example, the demake of Super Smash Bros. In the style of the original Game Boy. However, there are a lot of Chinese bootleg demakes as well, where some no-name Chinese company steals the story and characters of a popular game, and shoddily redoes the whole thing for inferior hardware that still happens to be in use in the third world. Like the infamous NES demake of Final Fantasy VII. But probably the highest quality demake project out there is Bloodborne PSX. It's exactly what it sounds like. The beloved PS4 FromSoft game Bloodborne, but remade in the style of a PlayStation 1 game. Man, you know what? I'm so happy that the PS1 N64 style made a retro comeback. Like how Shovel Knight brought the NES style back, and Stardew Valley did it for the SNES. Bloodborne PSX gets all of the PS1 feel right. The music, the sound effects, the interface, the way textures are pixelated on the models and the environments. It truly is the product of a talented hand. That hand is Botster, aka Bunlith, aka Lilith Walther, aka LW Media. I'll call them Bunlith in this video because that's their current online name. They're apparently 32 years old, which means they probably chose Botster when they were like 12. The channel's been around since 2006, which is older than my channel. Considering that Short Fat Otaku was chosen in 2009 and no longer accurately represents anybody featured on my channel, Botster is probably a similar holdover from earlier in their life. Anyway, Bunlith's earliest uploads are basically just a bunch of student projects. You know, redoing cutscenes from other games, a couple of failed indie dev projects, pretty much what you would expect from a beginner's portfolio of somebody trying to break into game development. However, in 2017, they started posting early work-in-progress videos of the Bloodborne demake, and this is the project that would go viral and put their name on the map. I recall hearing about this years ago and thinking it was really cool. For April Fool's 2021, Bunlith announced they were canceling the Bloodborne demake project and instead decided to make Bloodborne Kart, retooling all the assets from the demake into a Mario Kart style project. Now, this was originally an April Fool's joke, but either Bunlith really liked the idea or it gained traction somewhere or something, but as a result, it became an actual project. That is, until January of 2024, when they were contacted by Sony and told to knock it off for obvious copyright reasons. It's at this point that Bloodborne Kart was renamed to NIGHTMARE Kart and came out as an actual real-ass indie game project. And you know what? It looks really cool. The PS1 graphics, the horror theming, the fact that the cast are all of these gothic stereotypes, riding around on motorcycles or carriages, or this General Grievous-looking uniwheel thing.
This is a lot more fun when they're not shooting back. I still can't seem to hit anything.
Part of making a good game is having fun gameplay, obviously, but another big part of it is having a unified and interesting style, where all you have to do is get a quick glance, and you instantly know what the game's all about, and NIGHTMARE Kart is really good at that. The game eventually dropped on June 5th, 2024, and hey, it's free to play, so clearly a labor of love. Now, if this were simply the end of the story, it would be no problem, but then something else happened. Stuttering Craig of Screw Attack fame, you know, that early internet gaming site, if you're old enough to recall, put on a show called The Real Game Awards on January 23rd, 2025. The reason he named it the Real Game Awards is because Craig, like most gamers, is pretty fed up with how the Game Awards have slowly declined over the years. Jeff Keighley's been doing the Game Awards for a long time now, first partnered with Spike TV as the Video Game Awards or the VGAs, and then on his own as the Game Awards or TGAs. Keighley's entire career can be encapsulated by the legendary Dorito Pope meme, where during the launch of Halo 4 back in 2012, he gave a true, from-the-heart speech about how much he loved video games and gaming culture and the industry, while surrounded by a pile of Doritos and Mountain Dew advertisements. He seems like a guy who really does love gaming, but he also knows how to, play the game. Running an award show is expensive, which means sponsors, which means advertisements, which means every year the Game Awards gets a little more bloated with corporate slop and spends a little less time on what people are actually there for, the awards. So Craig basically said, screw it, I'll do my own. He's no stranger to putting on shows. He's made YouTube videos for years, and he's done real-life events like SGC. So fuck it, why not do an award show too? And when it finally dropped, it was exactly as advertised. 35 minutes of awards with all the BS trimmed out. Sounds good to me. However, I'm not ignorant of what it takes to put on a show. If you want to fund any sort of production, you've really only got 3 options. 1. Take money directly from your audience to fund the production. 2. Take money from sponsors in exchange for displaying their advertisements at your audience. And 3. Just foot the bill yourself and eat the cost. That third one is the best option if you're looking to avoid being influenced by moneyed interests. But as far as I know, Craig's not a billionaire, and people's time and labor are valuable. The downside of the second option is that you become beholden to the interest of the people signing your checks. Some of both the wins and the nominees at Keeley's award show over the years have been highly suspect. This is exactly what Craig wanted to avoid with his show, which is why he went with the first option. But it has downsides as well. Craig pitched the Real Game Awards as a show where gamers decide who wins. Now, some people didn't like the fact that the awards were decided by a vote that was open to the public, and not controlled by industry veterans.
Did you know that at Jeff Keighley's award show, 90% of the vote, 90%, goes to media outlets? That means only 10% of the vote goes to you. They don't even think you should have a vote. See?
Every single major award show is voted on by people who are within that industry. And if I'm being completely honest with you, that's how it should be.
Does that make sense? No, of course not.
But that was the whole point of the show, to have the winners reflect the wider public opinion. However, the obvious downside of how the Real Game Awards was funded, specifically making it so that you had to pay to be able to vote in the awards, meant that in all practical terms, it was specifically Craig's audience determining which awards were given out, not the gamers as a wider community. That's a fair criticism. I've seen several people make it. But if I were in Craig's shoes, I would counter with this. It takes time and money to get a show off the ground, and it's got to come from somewhere. At the very least, having an entry fee is a guarantee that those who are voting care about the show, at least enough to pay for it. And if the Real Game Awards continues to grow and it breaks out from Craig's own sphere and becomes a wider part of online gaming culture, then the voting will be more representative of all gamers. Additionally, this will prove that a crowdfunded model works for award-style shows. If Keeley's been driving the sponsorship model to its breaking point year after year, then in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with Craig trying out the crowdfunding model, as long as he's honest about it. And as far as I've seen, he has been every step of the way. Now you might be asking, cool story, Dev, but what does this have to do with Bunlith and the Bloodborne demake? Well, check out who won Best Racing Game for 2024 in the Real Game Awards.
And the Real Game Award for Best Racing Game goes to, with 54% of your vote, NIGHTMARE KART.
Yeah, that's right, it's NIGHTMARE KART. Awesome, well deserved. Now how do you think that Bunlith took—
So honored to have won the coveted Anti-Woke Game Awards Best Racing Game category. As a trans woman, it's so comforting to see them prioritize diversity, equality, and inclusion. To celebrate, I'm gonna have gay sex with my fat transgender dog girl.
Okay, so right off the bat, Bunlith is trans. And if you couldn't tell, I mean, come on. The trans flag in LW media, the fact that their name is fucking Lilith. It seems like a full quarter of all trans women choose Lilith as their post-transition name. It's gotta have something to do with the OG Lilith being the misshapen, demonic, rejected wife of Adam before God made Eve, who was banished from the Garden of Eden because she refused to be subservient to him. In fact, knowing the biblical Lilith story really makes it sound like a transphobic name, which is why I'm still surprised I have multiple trans friends who choose Lilith. Hey listen, it's cool sounding, don't get me wrong, you do you, but there's gotta be something going on there. Additionally, Bunlith also seems to be a furry. The primary way they present themselves online is with an anthropomorphic bunny avatar, made in that same PS1 demake style. In fact, Bunlith's most viral content on their channel isn't anything to do with NIGHTMARE KART or any other game project, but is instead meme videos animated in that PS1 style. And again, they're really good. This person has some serious talent. Now, you know me. You know I don't care if someone's trans or cis. I don't care what kind of sex you're into. People are people, doesn't matter to me. However, Bunlith's online presence isn't only made up of video game content or meme content. There's actually a lot of political stuff here. And nobody's surprised at this, I'm sure, but they're radically left-wing. I'll get into this later in the video, but for now, just know that this person is exactly the type of politics that they look like they are. So, Bunlith clearly had a preconceived notion about Stuttering Craig in the Real Game Awards, which was informed by their politics. It's a commonly held view by most people who are, let's say, more left-leaning than your average American Democrat, that all individuals who are quote-unquote anti-woke are these partisan right-wingers who simply hate minorities and reject science, and they're rabidly devoted to the Christian church. You know what I'm talking about, the old pearl-clutching tradcons that I make fun of a lot in this channel.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
However, we know that's not the case. For example, the whole point of Goonergate was identifying the difference between the people who are anti-woke, because woke stuff is degenerate and anti-Christian and an affront to God, and the people who are anti-woke because woke individuals tend to be censorious and moralizing. I fall pretty cleanly into that second camp, while all the big Goonergate names were a part of the first. And as far as I know, Stuttering Craig is in that second camp as well. Basically, Bunlith made the mistake that I laid out in the Goonergate video, where progressives view tradcons and free speech advocates as the same thing, because they both oppose progressive morality. That's why Bunlith reacted the way they did, by talking about how trans they are and how much gay sex they're gonna go have. If Craig were a tradcon, if Bunlith were actually talking to one of those old religious boomers, then their reply is a very basic, standard, fishing for a reaction, a gasp, and a pearl clutch and an oh my god type of thing. But Craig's not that guy. Here is what is probably Bunlith's thought process on this whole thing. Bunlith noticed that Craig covers culture war gaming content on side-scrollers. Bunlith places Craig in the anti-woke box in their head, and assumes he simply hates gay and trans people, which naturally means that he hates Bunlith too. Bunlith hates Craig back, and opposes him politically, because only those far-right religious traditionalists are anti-woke. Bunlith does the complete opposite of religious traditional morality in an attempt to piss Craig off. However, because Craig is not that guy, he reacted pretty much as everyone expected.
We had several nominees, and once again, nominated by you, the voting members. And the person who won that game was an indie dev who created a game called NIGHTMARE KART. Well, they were not happy that they won this award, and they took to Twitter over here, and they said, "So happy to have won the coveted Anti-Woke Game Awards Best Racing Game category. As a trans woman, it's so comforting to see them prioritize diversity, equality, and inclusion. I'm going to have gay sex with my transgender dog girl." Which, hey, awesome. This is the winner here. And this was shocking to see. Now, you notice that what happened here was this reply was hidden by the original post author. And
that's your reply.
That's right.
That's funny.
How did I respond? I responded simply by saying, congrats. You'll notice that literally no one cared that you're trans. Literally no one. The audience cared that you made a good game. That's all people want. Our show is not anti-woke. It's simply meant to be an alternative to the access media / industry. So enjoy your gay sex. Which, that's what he said. He said he's going to go have a gay sex. I said, go enjoy it. Now, I've since been blocked for having this response to them.
Now let's give the devil their due. There were people in the replies who were straight up just hating on Bunlith for being trans. Get this game out of here. Get this person out of here. We don't want trainers in my video games. You're going to get what's coming to you, etc., etc. And you know what? That's pretty shitty. But the overwhelming majority of people chiming in on this event, me, Cabrutus, Smash JT, Christina Tasty, everyone all had the same take. We don't care what demographic you happen to be a part of. We only care if the game that you've made is good or bad. This is that Goonergate divide again. You've got the John Della Rose types who simply want minorities out of gaming because they are minorities. They want religious morality enforced on all. And then you've got actual sane individuals who simply want high-quality games. However, we've noticed a growing correlation between virtue-signaling progressive game developers and low-quality games. The former wants to censor woke games, to prevent people from buying them, and to set a moral standard that is applied to all. The latter wants all types of games to exist. Woke, non-woke, explicitly anti-woke, so that all interests can be catered to in the marketplace. What's really interesting here is Bunlith's follow-up reply, because they go from cheeky and teasing and irreverent and clearly trying to get under Craig's skin, to revealing that it's their skin that's actually been gotten under.
Rescind my reward. I did not give you permission. You never asked for permission like every other awards show that has approached me. This is true for other devs' games you put in your show. You did not ask. Remove it now.
In fact, Craig actually discovered this reply live on air, which is kind of funny.
He wants you to take back his reward?
Well, does he want?
Yeah, scroll down. Rescind my reward. I did not give you permission.
Look at that. This is good.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Me.
It's a bit small on the screen.
Yeah, sure. This is, I haven't seen this yet. Rescind my award. I did not give you permission. You never asked my permission like every other award show that has approached me. This is true of for other devs you put in the show. You did not ask. Remove it now. Wow, this is I didn't see this. Okay.
That's funny because Dev and Smash are both correct. He already accepted the award.
Wow. You know, I gotta be honest. No, you get the award whether you like it or not, because
You'll take it.
Take it.
Sorry, because I have not. It wasn't my award to give. So if they liked your show, if they liked your game, and they felt that it was your award, then there you go.
That's right, Blabs. Both Smash, JT, and I pointed out that in Bunlith's cheeky attempt to take the piss out of Craig, they had already accepted the award. I can't speak for Smash, but the reason I pointed it out is because I immediately noticed and understood the tonal shift in between Bunlith's two tweets. In the former, they're mocking Craig by saying something that they think he will find sinful, but after that fails to stick, because they've completely misjudged the moral code of the crowd they're dealing with, they swap to outrage instead, saying, "How dare you give me an award?" Bunlith is immediately put on the back foot once the offense gambit fails to find purchase. This whole exchange has real Lisa Simpson dares to play football energy, you know what I mean?
A girl wants to play football. How about that?
Well, that's super duper, Lisa. In fact, we already have 4 girls on the team.
Now, most of us just laughed at Bunlith's stupidity for mixing up actual religious right-wingers who want trans people removed from society or whatever, with normal people who don't care if you're cis or trans or straight or gay or black or white or whatever, as long as you do a good job and make fun games. And that's where the story ended for a lot of people. But I wanted to dig a bit further into it. Over in the Bunlith sphere of the internet, among people who are very progressive, you know, very left-leaning, trans activists, allies, that sort of thing, a few of them did actually remark that Bunlith's comments just seem petty, but the majority of them made fun of the anti-woke awards show for nominating and awarding a trans woman, under the mistaken belief that if we had just known, Nightmare Kart would definitely not have won. And so therefore, we're all simply silly, stupid gamer chuds, who are too ignorant to actually look into the games and creators that we're enjoying. This is kind of like the whole media criticism conversation, where people within this political alignment say that if you're a right-leaning person who, for example, watches The Boys, then you have to be a moron, because The Boys is explicitly critiquing right-wing politics, and how can you possibly consume a piece of media that goes against your own views? There's actually a pretty long answer to that question that'll have to wait for another video, but it's the same type of argument. Bunlith and their fans view Craig and his fans as necessarily ignorant because they are anti-woke and therefore anti-trans, and Bunlith is trans, and so supporting Bunlith's game means that they're supporting their political enemy, and they don't even know it, so it has to come from ignorance. It's very simplistic and, ironically enough, binary thinking. These people cannot even conceive that the community they're dealing with can actually disagree with them politically on some things without hating them, which is why the viewers of the Real Game Awards think that Nightmare Kart is a good game, and it just doesn't matter who the creator is. Bunlith occasionally does game development streams, where they work on their next projects while talking to their chat. Once again, there's some real talent here, especially since they've turned the PS1-looking bunny fursona thing they use in the meme clips into a VTuber avatar for these streams. After the Real Game Awards aired, Bunlith's community actually asked them about it several times.
Is that award-winning furry queer dev Bunlith? That's me. That's me. Yeah, I won the anti-woke award. I am the most anti-woke racing game in existence. It's so unwoke. Duke has subscribed for 5 months. Thank you so much. Just wanted to pop in and congratulate you on your game, winning the anti-woke game award for the best game, best racing game. Let's clarify. So glad to see trans creators getting the anti-woke spotlight. I know. I'm so anti-woke, everyone. Henchmen. Oh wait, no. That's not woke enough. It's gotta be hench people. You're so right, honey Azalea. It's hench people now. You can't say henchman because of woke. And you know me, I am anti-woke trophy winner. That's me, PSX Wokelith. I say hench people. Yes, it's me, it's Wokelith, really. I am so woke. Is this the winner of the best racing game at the Based Red Pill Gamer Awards? More like the Cringe Awards.
Yeah, most of the mentions of this whole thing are just offhanded jokes. Probably the only funny one was when Bunlith drinks from a water bottle in real life, and the bunny avatar mimes unscrewing a non-existent bottle, while they say something like, "Look, I'm drinking from the award trophy that I got."
Drinking out of the anti-woke trophy. Yes, everyone, it's my anti-woke trophy, thank you. Here it is. You can see it. You can see it right here. I'm gonna... drinking out of my anti-woke trophy. Fucking delicious.
Because Craig didn't send out physical awards because the show was just starting off. I get it, that's pretty clever. However, here's the clip that we should actually talk about.
The Real Game Awards. They didn't want no woke games in their game awards, and they put Nightmare Kart in it. And now they're really angry because they didn't realize I was a filthy transgender. It's fucking hilarious.
Listen to how Bunlith describes the series of events. The Real Game Awards is anti-woke. They don't want woke games. They put Nightmare Kart in, not knowing it's a woke game, and it won Best Racing Game. Now, the Real Game Awards is angry because the game was made by a trans woman and they didn't know. Of course, if you've been paying attention to this video so far, you would know that this description of events is not accurate. In actuality, the real Game Awards is simply an apolitical award show. That doesn't mean that Craig himself doesn't have political views, I'm sure he does, but out of a sense of professionalism, he keeps them out of the show, which is as it should be. And the cold hard truth is, Nightmare Kart won because more people voted for it. Bunlith assumed that the individuals involved hate trans people, and so they tried to offend them. When that failed, because people don't actually care, they got offended themselves, and then demanded that the award be rescinded. And then they retreated back into their echo chamber where they told everyone that they were a victim of anti-trans hate. And all of their supporters just ate it up, laughing about how dumb those anti-wokes are for nominating a trans woman's game, when in reality, most of us simply did not give a shit. By the way, adding to this whole misdirection is the fact that after Bunlith demanded that Craig rescind the award, some of the people who were previously neutral on the whole thing, you know, the people who said that we don't care if you're cis or trans, you only care if the game is good, well, they began to review bomb Nightmare Kart on Steam. Not because Bunlith is trans, but because Bunlith is an asshole. The review bombing didn't really take off, to be honest, but Bunlith recontextualized the attempt as right-wing gamer chuds canceling me for being trans, rather than the truth, which was that they acted like a shithead and got treated like one. Also, over on Blue Sky, Bunlith claimed that people were making AI-generated images of them to try and ruin their life, which, I don't know. I haven't seen anything like that researching this whole saga. I have no fucking clue where this claim comes from.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
Anyway, let's get to the core of the issue. Bunlith mentioned getting cancelled, and it really does seem like getting any sort of pushback for any reason is framed as a cancelling nowadays. However, what's happened in this instance is actually an inversion of the usual cancelling process. Here's what I mean. Think back to the pro-Jared cancelling. Anyone who's reasonable would accept that that was a cancel culture event. The TLDR of it is that back in 2019, pro-Jared had a bunch of allegations drop against him of sexual impropriety with minors, and his audience revolted against him. The story broke out of his community pretty quickly, and soon enough the entire internet descended on him like a pack of locusts, unfortunately including me. I got that one wrong and I regret having gotten involved. It turns out that he had receipts. He vindicated himself in his response video, but nonetheless his reputation was tarnished. That is like your basic cancel event, distilled down into its purest form. Allegations drop, audience turns on creator, wider internet gets wind of it, and a bunch of hanger-ons appear. Some of them are drama farmers and clout sharks, some of them are moral busybodies, some of them are just trolls. Eventually the creator returns with receipts and clears their name, and their audience forgives them, or sometimes the creator forgives their audience, or some of them were true believers who never turned, whatever. The point is that it's a mass social rejection of the creator by the audience. But what happened with Bunlith was the inverse. It was a rejection of the audience by the creator. Remember, individual gamers voted for Nightmare Kart in the real Game Awards. The people who liked Bunlith's game are the ones who made sure it won. On some level, they are fans of Bunlith, or at least fans of the game they made. Bunlith characterized the review bombing as getting cancelled for being a trans game developer, when in actuality, Bunlith had already rejected the segment of their fan base that overlapped with Stuttering Craig, and so that segment reacted to that rejection. If a cancelling is when an audience rejects a creator, what is it called when a creator rejects their audience? I don't know, but the more interesting conversation is why it happens in the first place. There's a really cool series by the YouTuber Any Austin called Video Game Hydrology. It's where he examines the map of an open world game and traces the flow patterns of the bodies of water, plus applying a bit of real life science to try and find the beginnings and endings of river systems. For example, the realm of Hyrule in the Legend of Zelda games Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom sees the majority of its water originate from Zora's Domain, which makes sense, or the Dueling Peaks region, flow clockwise around Hyrule Field and Hyrule Castle before ending up in one of two spots, either dumping into Lake Hylia, which then feeds out to the Southern Ocean, or going into this tiny unnamed lake a bit east of the Great Plateau, and then apparently just vanishing, because this lake only has inflows, and yet never actually fills up. Because obviously it's a video game. The creators probably just slapped water where it made sense for gameplay, and didn't think about making a realistic water system because who would? But still, tracing this stuff is a cool idea for a video series. He's done the waterways of Skyrim, Morrowind, Red Dead Redemption, and also similar ideas like tracing the power lines in Grand Theft Auto 5 to see if they actually connect to any sort of realistic power grid. All of his stuff is pretty entertaining and well done. He also makes it very clear that if you're anti-trans, you're not allowed to enjoy his content. Now, this sort of thing has always kind of bugged me. You know, where it's not enough to just disagree with your own audience on political things, I do that all the time, but you actively spurn them for political reasons. That's over the line for me. I don't kick people from my community because we disagree politically. I kick them when they violate my rules. And even then I still wouldn't have the hubris to say that you're not allowed to watch my videos after I ban you. How would I even be able to fucking enforce that? It's just stupid. With regards to any Austin statement specifically, I like his content and I don't consider myself anti-trans, but I also know from experience that what constitutes anti-trans is actually pretty broad. I don't know what he means by anti-trans, and I have a feeling that if he were asked to clarify, he'd respond with some progressive platitude about trans rights being human rights, and any further investigation of the topic would probably be met with accusations of transphobia. Because hey, we don't really need to know what the words we're saying mean, right? Whenever I've been asked if I'm pro-trans rights, my answer's always been, it depends. Should trans people have the right to privacy? To be left alone by the government to live the kind of lives they want to live? Of course, just like anyone else. Should trans women have the right to compete in women's professional sports? No, because their biological sex, male, grants them unfair advantages. I did a previous video going over the data on that one, and even after 5 years of HRT, the advantages of having gone through a male puberty are still present. However, when people say trans rights, what they're referring to is actually a box that contains all possible pro-trans positions. And in order to not be labeled as transphobic, you must accept the entire box, even if only some of the box actually makes any sense. So when lefties call me transphobic, it's because I don't accept the whole box. Meanwhile, righties call me gay or closeted trans or whatever, because I don't reject the entire box either. At least that's one of the reasons.
I didn't know the Knights had hot cat girls too.
Actually, I'm a boy.
No, you're fucking not.
No, really,
I said, no, you're fucking not.
So, when any Austin says, you can't enjoy my content if you're anti-trans, it's possible, even likely in my opinion, that being pro-trans here means accepting the entire box of pro-trans positions, no matter how unreasonable some of them might be, because that is how a lot of progressives use the phrase. But the underlying question here is, why can't you enjoy his content? What does video game hydrology have to do with being pro-trans or anti-trans, or just not giving a shit about trans issues one way or the other? It's a series about fucking water flowing in video games. How is it related to trans stuff at all? Unless you're doing some dumb metaphor where damming up a waterfall is transitioning a river into a lake, the obvious answer is, it's not. And yet, this sort of thing is actually pretty prevalent on the left. The idea that you aren't allowed to enjoy a creator's work if you don't align with the creator's political views. I'm not even talking about a work that is explicitly political, like, again, The Boys. The idea that right-leaning people can't enjoy a show that critiques their politics, just based on pure entertainment value, is a dumb idea, but at least there's something there to grab onto. But video game hydrology isn't The Boys. It's not a narrative with political themes. And yet, if you disagree with any Austin on the trans question, you're not allowed to enjoy his videos. Editing dev butting in here for a minute. So I actually just responded to that post on Blue Sky with why, and Austin said word of God, which is obviously a joke response, but we're all autists here, and this is a joke response with actual meaning behind it. So let's do what autists do best. The phrase word of God refers to the Bible, which Christians believe to be a direct line of communication from the divine to humanity, meaning it is the absolute unchallengeable authority on all things. In literary terms, word of God refers to when the author of a work declares what is the objective truth and fact within the world they've created, since they are the god of that world. A well-known example is when J.K. Rowling stated outside of the Harry Potter books that Dumbledore was gay. Even though it never actually appeared in the story, within the world of Harry Potter, Dumbledore was gay the entire time. The idea is more complicated than this, but I don't want to spend any more time on it right now. This is good enough. When Austin said word of God, it's clearly a flippant social media meme response, where he's basically just saying because I said so. There's no canon to his videos that needs clarifying, which basically means that we've arrived at my stated position, just through an ever so slightly different route. There's a few reasons that this attitude is so common. The first one, and the one that I've previously covered the most, is the idea of trolls' remorse, where creators who were edgy and pushing boundaries and making off-color jokes back in the 2000s, when that was the zeitgeist, are now all very apologetic and deeply sorry for all the hatred they perpetuated, because up until recently, progressive self-flagellation was the new zeitgeist. The poster children of trolls' remorse are guys like Egoraptor and iDubbbz, whom I've already spoken about at length on this channel, so I'll use a different example this time. You guys remember the awkward zombie webcomic by Katie Tiedrick? She was this tomboy high schooler chick who reposted her comics to 4chan's V-board back in the late 2000s. It was like most webcomics of the time, focusing on video game humor. And though she was never as edgy as like Penny Arcade at their edgiest, she still had no problem throwing in the occasional politically incorrect joke, as well as catering to the 4chan crowd. Like for example, where the punchline is that one of the characters is terrified at the prospect that he's in the closet because he's been mind-controlled to have a dream where he's gay. Progs today would call this homophobic, but most normal people just chuckled and moved on. Well, Katie's no longer a cool tomboy. She's now a 30-something socialist who believes that fascism has come to America. She is, of course, entitled to have that view, but she also did this thing where she interrupted a recent comic to preach to the audience about her political views, telling them to not read her comics if they support Trump, and also just forget about that edgy past. There's no reason to bring any of that up. When a creator used to be edgy back in the day, and now they virtue signal about how progressive they are, it's probably trolls' remorse driving them to say things like, if you disagree with me on politics, don't consume my content. It's part self-flagellation, and it's part purging their fan base of old fans they now find undesirable. But despite the internet being littered with sufferers of trolls remorse, there are other reasons as to why creators might turn on their own audiences. And some of these are pretty simple, so we'll just speed run them real quick. Some people have what I call Spoonie syndrome, where they end up not being able to produce content anymore due to spiraling depression or some ongoing medical problem, or maybe they just no longer have the spark, the fire within them, something along those lines. Basically, they're just not fit to be a creator anymore. In these cases, the demands of the audience are actually not unreasonable. They're saying, just make videos, and the creator can't even muster up enough gumption to do that, and so they end up becoming embittered by even the slightest of pressures on their time. Others have what I call nostalgia chick syndrome, and no, I'm not using only Tigwitig people for this list, where they are politically aligned with their increasingly radical audience, however they're just not radical enough for them. Lindsay Ellis, formerly the nostalgia chick, though she hates that period of her online career, is a very far left person, but she ended up getting cancelled and destroyed and run off the internet by her audience, who is even further to the left than she is, because she made the slightest of missteps and got purity tested into oblivion. A more recent high-profile example of this is Ethan Klein after the Hassan breakup, where it turned out that Jordan Peterson's warning to him about being eaten by the audience he was cultivating was actually correct. Though this happens more often to left-leaning people, the right isn't immune to it. For example, when Kyle Rittenhouse came out in support of a libertarian candidate for president in 2024, rather than supporting Trump, the entirety of MAGA immediately turned on him, screaming at him that he's a traitor and basically forcing him into submission. Demanding ideological conformity may be more prevalent on the left, but it's increasingly becoming a tool of the right as well. And still, some of them are trying to avoid audience capture, which is its own problem. A creator who is audience captured allows themselves to be pulled along by the whims of their audience. If their audience wants a specific video, they'll make that video. On the surface, that just sounds like providing the product that the customer wants to pay for, and fair enough, but this can obviously go too far. If an audience is politically more radical than the creator they watch, they may try to radicalize the creator with their demands. And a creator who is audience captured will allow themselves to be radicalized, or at least they'll fake being radicalized, in order to keep their audience around. This time, the effect seems to happen slightly more to the right than the left, where center-right creators will get tugged further rightward by a far-right audience. But again, this still happens plenty to center-lefties as well. I probably sound like a broken record, but like so many things, when it comes to audience capture, the golden mean is king. If a creator leans too far into audience capture territory, then they either put out content they don't really believe in to keep their viewers happy, simply saying whatever it takes to be popular, or they allow their brains to be molded by the whims of their viewers. And neither of these things is good. However, if a creator leans too far in the other direction, where they just do nothing to make their audience happy, then they won't have an audience at all, having driven them all away. Striking a balance on this one is tough. Lord knows I've failed at it a whole bunch. So, when it comes to Bunlith demanding that Craig rescind the 2024 Best Racing Game Award, I think we can cross off all of these possibilities as motivations for their behavior. Maybe Bunlith has trolls remorse, maybe they've got some edgy transphobic past they're trying to make up for, but I see no evidence of it. And though this is just a hunch on my part, I don't think so. Spoonie syndrome? Obviously not, they're still making content. Nostalgia chick syndrome? Nope, not if their stream chat is anything to go by. Avoiding audience capture? Again, it's possible, but probably not. Having discarded all of these possibilities, what remains is the dynamics of social recognition. When somebody wins an award for their creative work, like an Oscar or an Emmy or a Grammy or a Game Award at Keeley's show, it's not simply that they've made the best movie or TV show or song or video game. It's that their peers in the industry, who are also talented, hardworking, noteworthy individuals, have come together and said, this one is the best among us. It is a sign that they've gained the respect of the people they look up to. It's saying, yes, you do deserve to be here. It's a gesture of social acceptance by the wider community. The reason that after Bunlith's attempt to make Craig angry or disgusted failed, they moved on to demanding he rescind the award is because Bunlith's political views makes it impossible for them to accept the idea that they may be in a community with people like Craig and his audience. The social acceptance that comes with winning a category at the Real Game Awards, the gesture of respect, isn't desirable to Bunlith. It's disgusting to them, because they do not view Craig or his audience as peers due to their political divide. In fact, it's likely that they took the award as an insult, which is partially why they tried to insult Craig in turn, and then when that failed, behaved as if they had been insulted. Now once again, you and I both know that the Real Game Awards was an apolitical show. Craig largely kept his personal views out of it and focused on the games, which is exactly how it should be. However, to a person like Bunlith, to be apolitical is to be against their political positions. From their point of view, neutrality is the political enemy, which means that the award that NIGHTMARE KART won was praise by the enemy, and so they had no choice but to react with scorn. Now, if you're a normal, well-adjusted person, you're probably wondering how someone can get their brain so warped that this is how they think. And in order to answer that question, it's time to actually talk about the underlying politics that drives a lot of very left-leaning people to these positions. Yes, this is the section of the video where we go over theory, which is obligatory in every dev video now, I guess. It just doesn't feel right doing one without it, you know? So here's the old political spectrum. There's a lot of problems with it, but it's okay for baby's first politics. And more importantly, it's how most people who have dipped at least one toe into political analysis understands the relationships between the various political factions. The TLDR is left and right on the spectrum, broadly represents where you want to go, and authoritarian libertarian, up and down, broadly represents how you want to get there. West-east axis is goals, north-south axis is methods. And if you've watched my previous videos, you've heard me say this next bit before, but it's important, so we're going over it again. The libertarian left and libertarian right quadrants of the spectrum contain political positions that both value liberty as a virtue, but they also have very different ideas of what a liberty-maximizing society would look like. At the extreme ends of the libertarian axis are the anarchists, with anarchism being a political philosophy that seeks to abolish all institutions that perpetuate authority, hierarchy, and coercion, viewing them all as immoral due to their infringement of people's personal liberties. In practical terms, anarchists want to dismantle the government, the police, and corporations in order to bring about a stateless society. In the libertarian right corner, we have the anarcho-capitalists, or the ANCAPs. The ANCAPs believe that society can self-regulate through voluntary interactions between individuals, and that the state can only serve to oppress individuals by forcing non-voluntary interaction between them. For example, when two people freely consent to trade, that's a voluntary interaction. But when the state redistributes wealth from one individual to another through taxation, that's an involuntary interaction between them that's been forced by the state. The ANCAPs believe that government regulation is inherently oppressive, and that if the state were abolished, the resulting society would be a series of atomized individuals, all owning their property exclusively as small landowners, where all formerly public property like roads, utilities, police forces, and so on are privately owned. They'll compete in a free market, and they'll naturally become more efficient due to that competition. Put simply, ANCAPs believe that the natural state of humanity is individualism and separatism. The state is what forces people to engage with each other in a collectivist manner, and abolishing the state means abolishing collectivism. In the other corner, the libertarian left, we have the anarcho-communists, or the ANCOMs. The ANCOMs believe that society can self-regulate through mutual interactions between individuals, and that the state can only serve to oppress people by isolating them from one another. For example, when two people freely consent to help each other, that's a mutual interaction between them. But when the state requires all social aid to flow through its bureaucracy, making direct mutual aid illegal, that action disrupts local community power. The ANCOMs believe that private property can only exist due to the government protecting it with laws and police, and that if the state were abolished, the resulting society would be all of humanity living in a mass commune, everyone collectively owning the society's property, where all people can withdraw from the commons as they need, and all would work to restock the commons for the common good. Put simply, ANCOMs believe the natural state of humanity is communalism and interconnectedness. The state is what forces people to isolate from each other, and abolishing the state means abolishing atomization. Neither side views the other as being real anarchists. The ANCOMs think the ANCAPs are not real anarchists, because ANCAPs want private property maintained, not abolished, which requires the state to exist to protect that property. The ANCAPs think the ANCOMs are not real anarchists, because the ANCOMs want the right of the individual to disassociate from others to be abolished, since collective ownership of everything by all of society requires social connection that the individual might not consent to. And the truth is, they both have a point. They might both be anti-government, anti-state, anti-corporation, but private ownership does actually require a government to protect property, and the ANCAP paradise would likely collapse into a feudal structure of property owners controlling the lives of workers in exchange for the right to live on their property. And at the same time, collectivization does actually require a government to force people into it, since people do actually like to be independent. And the ANCOM paradise would likely collapse into a state socialist model, not unlike the Soviets, where the government owns all property as the representative of the mass of people who collectively own everything. Anarcho-communism is one of the two major branches of social anarchism, the other being anarcho-syndicalism. In reality, they're actually very similar, with only one big difference between them. The ANCOMs view unions as a means to achieve revolution, but the ANSYNs view unions as a revolutionary end in and of themselves. However, this is only a difference in theory, and most modern millennial or zoomer American leftists, who are far enough left to view the American Democratic Party as being right-wing, tend to adhere to broadly social anarchist principles like abolishing hierarchies, capitalism, money, classes, the state, without any real care or knowledge towards stuff like branches of political theory. Now, maybe you're wondering what makes the social anarchists different from the Soviet-style authoritarian socialists that they also claim to oppose, due to the authoritarianism, not the socialism, especially since left-anarchist societies tend to morph into the tanky wet dream as soon as they realize that any form of social organization requires hierarchy. Well, the big difference between them is how they view revolutionary potential as it relates to class. Orthodox Marxists have identified the proletariat, the people who work the means of production but don't own them, as the primary vehicle of revolution against capitalism. As its contradictions can no longer be ignored, the proletariat will inevitably revolt against the bourgeoisie, that class of people who own the means of production but don't work. Yeah, I described this all in my What is Woke video. And now it's time to talk about another of Marx's classes that was irrelevant in that conversation. There's also the petite bourgeoisie, people who own the means of production but also work them themselves. And most importantly for today, there's the Lumpenproletariat, the people who neither own nor work the means of production. These are the vagrants, the prostitutes, the robbers. Marx viewed them as leeches on the working class from below, as the bourgeoisie were leeches from above, neither of them providing any of their own labor to society. In his view, the Lumpenproles were a parasitic group of people at the bottom of society who had been left behind by the forces of progress, too poor to own capital, but also incapable of selling his labor, and so he turned to begging or crime to survive. Marx believed they had no revolutionary potential due to their lack of class consciousness, and could easily be bribed by the bourgeoisie to impede revolution, who would then hire them as scabs or strikebreakers. Later theorists, like Trotsky, viewed the Lumpenproles as the easily duped foot soldiers of fascist movements. The Marxists and the Anarchists disagreed on many different things, including the role of the Lumpenproletariat, and the long history of the frenemy relationship between these two factions is outside the scope of this video. But basically, anarchist theorists, who rejected some of Marx's ideas, like Proudhon and Bakunin, believed that the Lumpenproles were highly vulnerable to propaganda, and so could be weaponized by all sorts of revolutionary movements. Therefore, it was vitally important that leftist propaganda made its way into their minds before anybody else's did. In my video on the competency crisis, I described how Lenin initially built his coalition on the socially excluded elements of Russian society: women, ethnic minorities, religious minorities, and not just the working class. As time passed and Lenin secured his power, this coalition became less useful. And by the time Stalin was in charge, the communists no longer required the socially excluded element to retain power. This was the big split between the authoritarian socialists and the social anarchists of this era, with each side viewing the other as reactionary and capitalist and fascist and whatever else for not falling in line. While it might be pretty funny for a right-winger to glibly point out on social media that it's ridiculous for so many gay or trans people to be socialist revolutionaries, considering that the Soviet Union viewed gay and trans people as bourgeois degeneracy, they nonetheless view themselves as anti-Soviet socialists because of the split between the authoritarian socialists and the social anarchists, specifically due to how each faction viewed the Lumpenproles. The authoritarian socialists distrusted the Lumpenproles, as they were easily bribed or easily fooled to be vectors of fascist infiltration. But they nonetheless still viewed them as victims, not as villains like the bourgeoisie, which is why career criminals from the underclass were treated more humanely in the Gulag than the educated members of the middle class who found themselves there for anti-revolutionary action. Meanwhile, the social anarchists viewed the Lumpenproles as the primary agent of revolution against capitalism. The socially excluded elements of society, for reasons other than economics, race, ethnicity, religion, and later sex, gender, and sexuality, were already primed against bourgeois capitalism. As a result, the social anarchist looked at the Lumpenproletariat as revolutionary comrades, and anything that advances the socially excluded classes of society, anything that propagates their values, is morally good. Now would be a good time to remind you that the values of the Lumpenproles are the values of the thief, the beggar, and the prostitute, and that what is considered morally good by the social anarchist are the behaviors from these groups that leech on capitalism from below in an attempt to collapse it by withdrawing from the system in perpetuity without actually contributing to it. It's important to note here that although these two groups are left-wing, they nonetheless hate each other with a passion, and the right often inaccurately conflates the two. The authoritarian socialists view the social anarchists as symptoms of bourgeois degeneracy, vulnerable to fascist radicalization, and also a leech on socialist projects just as much as capitalist ones. In their view, the Lumpenproles don't need extermination like the bourgeoisie, but they do need re-education. Meanwhile, the social anarchists view the authoritarian socialists as red fascists, a phrase on the left that describes a fascist regime using communist aesthetics. The social anarchists don't believe that state-run socialism is real socialism. It is in fact a form of capitalism, where the state has a monopoly instead of a corporation. And to the anarchists, all states and corporations have to go anyway. Most people that right-wingers might call woke are either some flavor of LGBTQIA+ supporting neoliberal ally, or a social anarchist. And social anarchists are by far the loudest and most dominant faction of the online left. Breadtubers, artists, indie game devs, musicians, you name it. If they're on the left and they're not hugely popular or a member of the establishment themselves, they are overwhelmingly likely to be social anarchists. For example, Vosh is a form of social anarchist, while Hassan is much more of a straightforward authoritarian socialist. At this point, we've spent over 10 minutes off the main path of the video, wandering through the forest of all knowledge, and maybe you've actually forgotten what this whole thing was initially about. Nah, looking down at the title won't help you either, it's pretty vague. But it's time to finally come back up for air. Now that you understand the difference between the authoritarian socialists and their focus on state-run command economies, and the social anarchists and their focus on Lumpenprole morality, we can finally return to our good friend Bunlith. Quick recap. We've got Stuttering Craig in the Real Game Awards, Nightmare Kart wins an award at the show and the indie dev behind it, Bunlith, is pissed about the win, which to most people makes no sense, because why would you be angry that people voted for your project to win an award? The answer to that question is in Bunlith's politics. Bunlith is, in my opinion, a social anarchist. I can't find them directly saying as such, because most people don't actually describe their politics in terms of ideology. They simply describe their beliefs. For example, a person might say that they're pro-life, pro-deporting immigrants, pro-police but anti-federal level police, pro-making Christianity the state religion. Maybe somebody who is politically engaged and educated enough would know to call themselves a paleoconservative or a Christian nationalist. However, most people who aren't super politically active, but still hold these beliefs, would probably not explicitly self-identify in that way, at least not on the spot. They would simply say what they think is correct without any knowledge of theory. So as for Bunlith, they hold a handful of vaguely social anarchist beliefs. At least 21st century social anarchism anyway. Pro-trans, pro-sex work, anti-cop, anti-capitalism, you know the drill. But let's go over some specifics. As we go through these points, tell me if anything makes a bit more sense to you now. For example, Bunlith reposts bog-standard anarchist stuff like protests at Tesla dealerships or graffiti about dismantling the current American capitalist, imperialist, colonialist, capitalist, whateverist system. Bunlith approves of furry art, where a character wears a shirt that says, "I am a dire threat to the American people and our way of life." One of many posts cut from the Be Gay, Do Crimes cloth, which is itself a whole-ass thing, where social anarchists believe the revolution will come if enough people do the exact opposite of what society deems as normal, from being gay to doing crimes, because Lumpenprole morality is simply the opposite of traditional morality. And so, revolutionary praxis is simply living as anti-normally as possible. One of Bunlith's most popular stickers from their online store is this one, where their bunny avatar is lounging around and saying, "I want shorter games with worse graphics made by people who are paid more to work less, and I'm not kidding." Which seems like it could have come straight out of r/anti-work. Not the part about shit bosses, but the part that presents being lazy as virtuous. Once again, the opposite of traditional morality. A lot of what Bunlith, and many other people like them, post to social media all hook into this concept of Lumpenprole morality. Being normal contributes to the current system. Being the opposite of normal disrupts the system. Because the system is oppressive, being gay and doing crimes is good. Sex work is good. Public indecency is good. Theft is good. Looting is good. Shoplifting is good. Homelessness is bad, but only because it's the system's fault. When homelessness is instead voluntary, when anarchists choose to leech off the welfare system, it is of course good. If you want evidence of that, all you have to do is look at Slab City. I don't want to dive down yet another rabbit hole, so we'll just go over this quickly. Slab City is an anarchist commune in Southern California, built out of the remains of Camp Dunlap after the Marine Corps stopped using the area. An article about the community in Smithsonian Magazine from October 2018 called Slab City a squatter's paradise. All property is considered communally owned. No standard of law is enforced. Criminals regularly go there to disappear, and the people who do actually live there and don't just pass through largely subsist off of government handouts. They do have a few solar panels, but the vast majority of their energy comes from gas power generators, and all of the fuel, food, and water the commune consumes is paid for by the American welfare program. There is a lot of deep lore to the Slab City story, too much to cover today, but it's basically the best example of an anarchist separatist society that has actually managed to last more than a few months on American soil, unlike Chaz or the Black Hammer compound. And it's basically just a shithole full of meth addicts and prostitutes who spend all day laying about on the taxpayer's dime. Slab City is the ultimate example of a community based on Lumpenprole morality, at least from the social anarchist point of view. No state, no capitalism, no hierarchy or rules or law or standards of any kind. Instead, the community is based on the centering of the marginalized element of society, the prostitute, the beggar, and the thief. And as a result, all of the professed anarchist values of communal ownership, mutual aid, and self-policing have completely failed. And basically, the people there only exist because the capitalist government that they hate pays them to exist, rather than their community actually being functional. Now, as for Bunlith, they haven't posted explicit support for all of this stuff, only some of it, but I find it hard to believe that they would actually oppose any of it if asked. Now that we understand, at least in part, Bunlith's political views, how do they relate to their strange, hostile reaction to having won Best Racing Game at the Real Game Awards? Well, there's many theories we could look at for that, but let's go with one of the most prolific modern social anarchist intellectuals, Howard Zinn. Now, I'm not saying that Bunlith has read this guy's work and swears by it, I don't know, but the political milieu that Bunlith exists within is heavily influenced by Zinn, and his ideas have permeated the left, even if individual leftists do not know their source. Zinn's autobiography, titled "You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train," is a common mistelling of the phrase "you can't stand still on a moving train," but you probably still get the point. It means that if a train is moving in one direction and you stand still, you are still moving in the direction the train is traveling. In this way, neutrality is impossible because you can't actually stand still. The point is either you resist the system or you aid it. If you're neutral, if you just don't care about politics, if you want to maintain an apolitical space somewhere, then you are in fact aiding the system, because you can't stand still on a moving train. Zinn describes how he came to this realization when he was peacefully marching in a protest in 1939 at the age of 17, and the cops knocked him out for simply holding a banner and being there. He wrote, "The state and its police were not neutral referees in a society of contending interests. They were on the side of the rich and powerful. Free speech? Try it, and the police will be there with their horses, their clubs, their guns to stop you." From that moment on, I was no longer a liberal, a believer in the self-correcting character of American democracy. I was a radical, believing that something fundamental was wrong in this country. As a result of this experience, Zinn would come to believe that neutrality is not only impossible, but actually undesirable. Being neutral or moderate or disengaged simply means you support the current system. And actively attempting to carve out neutral spaces, as liberals tend to do with their adherence to things like free speech, free association, the public-private split, means that you are actually actively using your energy creating projects that support the current system through your neutrality. Therefore, liberalism and conservatism and capitalism and normalcy are all reactionary, and of course, they're fascist. All types of revolutionary movements have either adopted Zinn's analysis or independently recreated it themselves. It's not exactly that complicated. Both anarchists and authoritarian socialists on the left appeal to the idea that neutrality, moderation, or being apolitical simply serves to prop up the current state of affairs, as well as neo-reactionaries and fascists on the right. This is in part why the extreme left wing views the center as far right, and the extreme right wing views the center as far left, because each of them views their opponent as the establishment, and therefore views the moderate as supporting the establishment by virtue of not supporting them. It is the simplest form of binary, either or, you're with us or against us thinking. So, when someone like Craig comes along and says, "I want the Real Game Awards to be a politically neutral space where we only care about the quality of games as decided by voters," a social anarchist like Bunlith thinks this person is either my political enemy or a stooge being used by them, which really just makes him almost as bad, because the apolitical space he's using his time and energy and money to build automatically supports the establishment politics that I oppose. I don't even think that Bunlith is actively thinking like this. This is going to be an intuitive reaction they have as a result of the ideology they're constantly swimming in, which is why I said all the way back earlier in the video that Bunlith views Craig's neutrality as declaration that he's an enemy. It's also why so many people like Bunlith either laugh at claims of neutrality or being apolitical as naive, or considers them to be dog whistles for support of the establishment. And yeah, if you ever wondered why, for example, Dustborn included this scene,
you may want to pick a different song next time. Folks in the Republic don't much like politics with their entertainment.
Well, now you know. Every time you say, "I'm apolitical," or "I just don't care about politics all that much," what they're hearing is, "I support the government and capitalism and corporations and the establishment." And any claims of being anti these things are simply an aesthetic, since if you really meant it, you would not even be trying to be neutral. Now, of course, this is all fucking retarded. I want to point out that I'm describing these ideas, I don't actually adhere to them myself. I understand the critique of neutrality supporting the current system, fair enough. But for me, there's actually a greater concern than just constantly living your life trying to affect political change. After all, if something is actually good and the establishment supports it, then you should still support it, because the establishment isn't inherently bad. It can be bad, and sometimes you do need to fight it, but this view of the social anarchists is identical to the view of the fascists and Carl Schmitt. It leaves no room for privacy, no room for a personal life. And of course it doesn't. The personal is political after all. Everything is fucking political. So here's what I think happened. When Craig said he was going to put his own political views aside and simply hold a Game Awards show where the viewers vote on who wins, regardless of politics, regardless of demographics, doesn't matter if you're a tranarchist like Bunlith, whoever wins the vote wins the award. I think that Bunlith's own ideological programming caused them to view the Real Game Awards as the fascist Game Awards, and they didn't want to be honored by fascists or consider themselves to be in community with or have any overlap with fascist Craig and his fascist followers. That is why Bunlith made incorrect assumptions about Craig's belief, as shown by their attempt to mock him. And that's also why Bunlith was insulted and demanded the award be rescinded after the mockery failed. If you can't stand still on a moving train, if politically neutral spaces only serve to prop up all of the evils of the current system, then to be honored by a politically neutral institution is, for an anarchist, to be told by their perceived enemies that they approve of them. Imagine somebody who has political or social views that are the complete opposite of yours, to the point that you find them disgusting. And now imagine that person praising you. That is likely how Bunlith took the Real Game Award win, since truly radicalized individuals view neutrality as being on the same level as their worst enemies, because they're fucking insane. Now, I have a feeling that Bunlith would simply say, LOL, you're overthinking it, I just don't like you, if they were asked about all this. However, if they were actually honest and capable of self-reflection, yeah, this is their logic. Same with Bunlith supporters constantly assuming that Craig and his audience are angry about the whole thing, even when they're obviously not. This even accounts for Bunlith's own stupidity, where they make fun of the idea that they're woke, since being woke is obviously radlib shit and not true revolutionary praxis, while in the same breath complaining about gender terminology, which is undeniably a critique that we could call woke.
I don't want to be mean or anything, but when someone says you probably don't know something and proceeds to teach me about it, that is a little bit rude. Right, Cooney. I don't like how gendered the term is, but that is, yeah, mansplaining, womansplaining. Right, that's the term, right? Girl-splaining, person-splaining. Right. We're woke. Person-splaining. We're person-splaining.
Once you know someone's ideology, it becomes pretty easy to predict how they react to a lot of things. Ideology is just programming. You don't even need to ask the person anymore. Just feed the variables into the machine. It'll produce the same output. By the way, I'm not saying that Bunlith can't hold any of these views, even if I personally think anarchism is literally the most retarded, dysfunctional school of politics. They're entitled to their beliefs. That's free speech, baby. To normal people on the outside looking in, Bunlith just appears to be nuts. And yeah, they kinda are, I guess. What I'm saying is, Bunlith's behavior appears irrational to the outside observer, but only if you don't understand their underlying ideology. Now that we do, their weird behavior makes more sense. Or at least it has an internal logic that we can follow. I don't blame the Side-Scrollers crew for not quite getting it. Like I said the last time I spoke about them, they're pretty normy. Political theory isn't their wheelhouse. Video games are. And their reaction to all of this is normal and appropriate. But hopefully now I've helped you put things together, at least a little bit more. Though this video is primarily about Bunlith and social anarchism, it would be remiss of me to not talk about the other person who got angry that their game was featured on the Real Game Awards. Selaco is an indie shooter currently in early access that has been pretty well received by gamers, and it too made an appearance on the Real Game Awards. Once again, I think the community voted to give it a spotlight, and despite this, the Selaco developers complained about it. Over on Blue Sky, they put out a statement saying that they're not affiliated with the Real Game Awards. And after hearing the lefty version of what the RGAs are, from their Blue Sky followers of course, they declared they wanted no part of it. This immediately turned the game into a culture war battlefield, with one group of people saying that they would not support Selaco if they don't disavow the Real Game Awards immediately, and another group saying that the Real Game Awards was just a politically neutral show. And if you disavow them, that means you hate political neutrality, and we're gonna review bomb you if you do. In their Discord server, they said they don't have the energy for either side of the culture war, which I'm guessing means neither pro-woke nor anti-woke. And they just want their game off the show due to the popular perception that the Real Game Awards is explicitly anti-woke, even though, again, it's not. They also claim that Craig is just trying to find relevancy again post-screw attack. All of which is stuff that you would say if you were just begging to have your Discord leaked, which it was. The ideal statement the official Selaco accounts could have made was to simply post, yeah, we didn't know we were going to be in this thing, and then left it alone, which they eventually did. As the story gained traction, the Selaco team eventually confirmed on Steam that they have a politically diverse development team and don't discuss politics at work. Moreover, they do not attack gamers or their fans or the Real Game Awards. Their only desire is to remain apolitical, regardless of Craig's intentions. A few of those, if you don't disavow then you're complicit idiots were angry, but they were always going to be. Personally, I don't think the entire Selaco dev team are these crazy ideologically devoted anarchists, the way that some other far-left indie devs are. I think they just hang out in those circles where those values are pretty normal, and they kinda casually drift in that direction as a normal impulse, only pulling back to neutrality after getting confronted on it. Like the Side-Scrollers gang, their job isn't political theory either, it's to make video games, so I also really don't blame them for just wanting to wash their hands of it all. Interestingly enough, Craig also shared his DMs with the Selaco developers, which pretty much confirms what I've said here.
Was that the shooter game?
Yes.
And I really liked that, but once I had that meltdown, I didn't buy it. I was totally going to buy that game too.
Yeah, people decided to go fucking insane for no reason. By the way, that's one thing I actually haven't talked about. I reached out to them privately. Be like, yo, man, like, hey, like, I want to let you know this is happening. And I reached out to them. By the way, Mark the Cyborg reached out to them, told them, hey, Craig would like to speak with you. You know what they didn't do at all once? Reach out. By the way, here, speaking of Selaco, here's the DM that I'm just going to read you the DM that I wrote to them. I said, hey, I wanted to personally reach out. Some folks are trying to get you upset. Some folks are trying to get you upset being featured in our award show. If you are, sorry. But I hope you understand the show is not political. There is no, quote, hate. Just people who enjoy games without all the fluff. Nobody cares if you're straight, gay, black, white, trans, whatever. Just make good games, and it looks like that's what you've done. The response to the trailer was overwhelmingly positive, and literally zero people care if you made the game or how you live or how they live their lives. We just thought it would be fun to give some free promotion to a pretty large audience. Hope you see some sales from it. For reference, I also posted this a bit ago, but I hope you don't get dragged down into their nonsense of hate, because it's all projection. And I included a tweet that I said, like, the thing about the Real Game Awards is that it's not political, like, at all. And that was a tweet I had. So, and they did not feel the need to respond to that.
So, where does this all leave us? We now understand that in the eyes of the social anarchists, neutrality is both impossible and immoral. Bunlith couldn't simply say, I don't know what the Real Game Awards is. They had to react with hostility, at even a hint that their political enemies might have just liked the game because it's fun. People like Annie Austin or Awkward Zombie have to make statements like, don't consume my content if you disagree with me politically, even though the consumption of their content has nothing to do with their politics or the politics of their viewers. Because everything is political. It's all connected. And if you aren't ideologically aligned, your view or your dollar is tainted. There's no room for personal enjoyment, despite political difference, in this view of consumption. There is no private space where you can simply enjoy a thing. You need to police your own habits, or the community will police them for you. And though this practice is highly oppressive, it has been very successful at generating social power for the left, which is why the right is rediscovering and readopting it, after having dropped it for the past few decades in favor of a more free market approach. However, I am a liberal. I've always been a lib. I will always be a lib. I think society is better when we have private domains that we can retreat to, where we can enjoy content that others might think is problematic, where we can simply consume things without having to think about it too much. Personally, I don't care if people who are radically different from me watch my videos. I'm not going to agree with you, I'm not going to cater to your views or your desires, but as long as you don't try to change me, you're welcome to be here. And that's a far more tolerant and inclusive position than anything Bunlith does. Anyway, I don't exactly know how to end this video, so anarchism is fucking retarded, and if you believe in it, you need to finish puberty. Bye! Okay guys, we've reached the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said at the beginning, I know this topic is pretty late, but I got done like 75% of the project before completely forgetting about its existence. So I figured I might as well just get it out anyway. Maybe early onset Alzheimer's is setting in, who knows? Early onset Devheimers, guys. Anyway, if you're watching this video on release, right after it drops, I will be streaming the next Ubisoft game, Assassin's Creed Shadows. So drop by and say hi. And if you liked the video, let me know. And I hope you did. I'll see you over there, guys. Have a good one. I love you.